loses a lot as the years go by. This just doesn't lose anything.
No, and also today you can do so many things that we couldn't do then and didn't want to do, I might add. The dialogue is a little racier today, and lots of words are used. We never had one suggestive remark on that show, or anything even close to it. It was just pure, solid, truthful humor, and I think that explains why it lasted so long.
You know what I admire, among many things I admire about it, is no one ever goes out of character. And I know things have got to be going wrong out there because you were doing this live stuff. You weren't stopping.
No.
And yet, and sometimes if you're watching very close, you can see something probably wasn't the way it should have been, but you never would know it by your reaction to it or Jackie's reaction.
You know what many people don't know, Pat? We filmed 1 year of 30, in those days you did 39 shows and you had 13 weeks off. We did our 39 shows, we did 2 a week, and we never took over one single shot or word. And there was one show called Chef of the Future, where they go on television. I don't know, a few people remember it. And they're trying to sell some dreadful kitchen equipment. And a piece of it broke off, and it flew off the set. And the two of them fell on the side of that flat, and it went right smack over on the ground, and that's still in.
Yeah.
He never did it over. Yeah. Now, today, with tape, they'd stop immediately, and the crew would rush around and put the wall up again. Yeah. But with Jackie, no, he wanted it fresh and vital and new.
Well, it showed. You know, tape is a wonderful convenience.
Yes,
but I've heard this from, not directors, not ours, Artie, but I've heard this from other... You're welcome.
I take it all back, Artie. You were a wonderful cameraman.
But I've heard directors say after a scene or a take, they'll say, "That's perfect, let's do it again." I've never understood that.
I don't understand it either.
Yeah, I mean, if you got perfection, stay with it.
Stick with it.
Do you remember this cover?
Don't fix what isn't broken.
Do you remember this cover?
Oh, no.
You have this in your collection?
No.
This is 1953. This was when this is you and your sister, Jayne.
Yes.
Yeah. And a nice story about you guys. You were just getting started then, 53. Would that have been the first?
No. When did we start? 52.
52, yeah. So this was early on. I was looking at the story about it, and before I tell you what Jayne had to say, do you remember doing the first show, the first episode?
Do I remember? It is etched indelibly on my brain. The first show I did with Jackie, I had always been rehearsal happy, and I'd worked with just about every comic in the industry who were all rehearsal happy people. The more you rehearsed, the more secure you felt.
Sure.
And I didn't realize that Jackie worked totally differently. So after I got the job, there was a week before I went on, and I was in a show on Broadway. So they called me for rehearsal on a Monday morning, and I went up there, and Life magazine was doing a big spread on him, and all they did was take pictures of us. And no rehearsal. So they said, well, Tuesday, 11 o'clock. So I went up Tuesday at 11 o'clock, and they said, oh, we're so sorry nobody called you. Oh, what a shame, Mr. Gleason had an appointment.
Still no
Come
rehearsal.
tomorrow at the same time.
Okay.
I said, well, I have a matinee on Wednesday, and that'll cut it too short. Well, make it Thursday.
They were really concerned.
And I was the only new one on the show.
So
Everybody
Thursday
had worked
comes,
together.
what happens?
Thursday came, 11 o'clock. He had to go to the dentist.
Now
Make it Friday. Now, as we got into Friday, I was so psychopathic with nerves and fright, I was a mental case.
Yeah.
Got up there Friday, he was gone again. My call on Saturday was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we went on the air live at 8 o'clock.
Not 1 ounce of rehearsal till that point.
No, and he'd never heard me read the part. So I sat in the theater, and they rehearsed the June Taylor dances till they were exhausted. And then we had...
Could you ever do that with your legs on the floor? They were amazing.
Never, never.
Amazing.
No, and I'm not about to try it now.
Okay.
A tight skirt doesn't work very well.
No, all right.
So, anyway, we had a guest singer, Eileen Barton, rehearsed her. And then finally they put up the Honeymooners set, and he just called us out at the theater in our own clothes. No props, no costumes. And we walked through it, and I went back and sat down in the theater with Art, and time was going by. It was getting late. And I said, when do we do the camera blocking? He said, you just did it. I said, well, how about dry runs with the camera? He said, you just did it.
That was it.
I said, what about dress rehearsal? You just did it. And I sat there, and without making a sound, big, huge tears just streamed down my face. And my manager said, don't cry, your eyes will swell up, you'll look terrible. So I went up to my dressing room at 6 o'clock that night, and I learned all his lines and Art's lines so that I would not be caught.
Now, when it was over, when you did, did you feel it went? How
That
did
first
you feel
show?
it went? Yeah.
I think I was so psychopathic with fright that I don't remember what I did,
had to have it over,
except that I ran to my dressing room, got my clothes on, got in a cab. I didn't wait till the show was over, and I cried all the way home.
Boy, you're an emotional woman there. Audrey plays the frowsy Alice, so says TV Guide, in Jackie Gleason's sketch, The Honeymooners. When Jayne, your sister, saw Audrey's first performance on the show, Jayne in tears, oh, that runs in the family, Jayne in tears rushed to her sister's dressing room. Without a word about her success, she threw her arms around Audrey and cried, "I never want you to be that poor."
That's true.
What a sweet story. We'll take a break and we'll be back with Audrey Meadows. Audrey Meadows is with us. You know, you were a successful actress before The Honeymooners, and certainly since. You've been a very busy lady. Do you ever tire of talking about it? Because it is what people like to focus on with you, certainly, because we have such affection for it.
Because Jackie was such an extraordinary talent. The man was an absolute genius, and he was so exciting to work with that, and also it was the best job I ever had. I only had one afternoon a week.
That's not too bad.
You know, and then when we did the filming, we did 2 shows a week, which no one's ever been able to do.
You must have a storehouse of stories, of things that went awry or...
Oh, plenty went awry. One terrible thing that went awry was because we didn't have to rehearse all afternoon, we would go and get something to eat in the back of the theater, and I ate shrimp, not knowing that I was going to have a violent eye allergy. And this eye blew up like a balloon, and my eyebrow went up into my hairline, and the eye was closed like that, which was going to be terribly attractive in the kitchen. And I ran to Jackie's room, and I said, "My God, look at my eye." And he had an allergy to certain kinds of shellfish. So he sent somebody running to the drugstore for an eye patch and put a joke in that Trixie had to ask me why I was wearing the eye patch. And I said, because I forgot to wash his socks. And
he just worked around it.
yeah, and he threw one at me. Not that he hit me.
Oh.
Because you know when he would do pow right in the kisser, never once touched me, but the rush of air that would go past my face.
You were in dangerous vicinity. Is this a legitimate
That is a legitimate dress that I wore on The Honeymooners, and a legitimate apron.
Wow, there it is, huh? Now this is probably a valuable item.
This was a dressy one. I mean, this was a good one.
What would this have cost back in the early 50s? Do you have any idea?
Oh,
and if I went to the store,
I think $18 or $14. Yeah.
What, it's probably worth something.
The aprons came to me in the mail from the fans.
People would send you things?
People would send me curtains and aprons.
Were the rods in them?
No, one woman sent me curtains, and a 10-cent coin fell out, and I read her letter, and it said it was too hard for her to mail the rod, but she had the 10 cents for me to go to the 5 and 10 and get one.
That's very sweet.
And then a bank sent me a pot holder, and they said if I banked with them, Ralph would never know where my money was. And my sister used to say, it's too bad you didn't live in the days of Diamond Jim Brady.
Yeah, you could do better than curtain rods, sure.
A lot better than aprons.
We have to take a look at a little something here, and this is, I guess we would call this, is this like the generic arguing? It probably doesn't need a whole lot of setup here, do you think? Do you know the clip?
I think it's probably where I was, I consider myself the first women's libber. You know, because I did tell Ralph.
You stood your ground against that guy.
I stood my ground.
Yeah.
And I think this is where I was telling him he didn't treat me properly as a woman.
Take a look, The Honeymooners, Audrey Meadows.
Well, I have got news for you, Ralph. You and Norton and some of the men in this building can learn an awful lot of things from Carlos. He happens to be a gentleman, Ralph, and that seems to be something that you have forgotten all about. He treats us like women. That's something you've forgotten too, Ralph. You seem to have forgotten that I am a woman.
I forgot that you're a woman. How could I? You're always yapping. What do you mean I don't treat you like a woman? I treat you like a woman. I let you sew, I let you cook, I let you wash the windows. Boys, don't do that.
You know, no matter how many times you've seen him, they're very, very funny. And you know, it's true, you're talking about being the first women's libber, but no matter how much yelling and how much guff he was giving you, you never gave an inch, you never backed off, you fixed him with that glare, and in the end, he was the one who kind of...
you may not have noticed that I stood very still through almost every single segment, because when I first went on, I thought, he's got such a strong character, and so does Art, and they were so physical and all over the place. And the camera naturally followed the money. Went wherever Jack went, the camera went. So I thought, I can't run behind him and follow him all over this little kitchen. So I would stand perfectly still, knowing he was going to come back. But we had a lot of wonderful Broadway actors, you know, could come in and
Sure.
would do a featured play part. But a lot of them couldn't stand it. They would come in and watch the rehearsal, and they would get so nervous, they'd say, that's all you're going to do? That's all? And you're going to go on the air?
Yeah.
And they'd leave.
Yeah.
And one woman was the most wonderful actress. She came on, I think she played, we had several people that came to play the maid or to play my mother. And she was a well-known Broadway actress, and I had the first scene with her. And I started the scene, and she, with the side of her face that was away from the camera, was looking at me saying her lines going just like this. And I thought, boy, is she nervous. And I thought, I have to cross the stage. And I have to turn around, and that side of her face is going to be right to the camera. And I went as slowly as I could to the bureau, and all I could think of was what Jackie's going to look like when he sees this face going. And I turned around, terrified, to look at her, and she's going just like this. She changed sides.
That's a versatile actress. Audrey, it's just great having you here. Thanks so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
Audrey Meadows, ladies and gentlemen. We'll take a break and be back with my pal Joe from Murphy Brown.
The Pat Sajak Show, sponsored by the Ford Motor Company. At Ford, quality is job one.